Along one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, a silent and dangerous threat is growing. Drug cartels are now using high-tech submarines to smuggle massive amounts of narcotics into the United States. These stealthy operations are becoming more frequent and daring, pushing frustration in Washington to new heights. How are these criminal groups able to pull off such secret missions beneath the waves? And more importantly, what message does it send when these subs can slip past defenses and deliver their deadly cargo without being stopped? Join us as we unveil how the United States Navy plans to unleash hell on cartel submarines. Back in the 1980s, drug smugglers were speeding across waves in go-fast boats and flying under the radar in small planes. These powerful boats had multiple engines and could zip past authorities with ease. But when radar technology caught up, those speedy getaways started failing. That's when smugglers looked for a new trick: semi-submarines built to quietly glide beneath the surface. The first big surprise came in 1988, when U.S. officials found a strange, unmanned submarine in Boca Raton, Florida. About 21 feet long and built for remote control, it was designed to be towed and had a hatch that only opened from the outside. Though it was empty when discovered, investigators quickly realized it wasn't just a one-off. It was likely used for sneaky drug deliveries. Fast forward to the early 1990s, and the powerful Medellin cartel saw massive potential. They knew that if they could move cocaine underwater, they'd dodge radar and avoid arrest. Already in control of coca growing, drug processing, and shipping, they saw narco submarines as the next smart step to tighten their grip on the entire operation. As go-fast boats became more of a liability, the cartels dreamed bigger. They wanted a vessel that could travel long distances, avoid detection, and power itself across oceans. To make it happen, they didn't just rely on local talent. They went international, hiring engineers from the Russian Navy to help design their secretive submarines. Even after the fall of the Medellin cartel and the arrests of the Cali cartel bosses, the dream didn't die. New criminal groups kept the idea alive, pushing more money and energy into submarine tech. They weren't just moving drugs, they were building silent, stealthy machines to carry their empire across the sea. Now they are no longer just chaotic gangs with basic weapons and fast boats. They had become smarter, more organized, and far more strategic. With time, they had gained access to enormous amounts of money, and instead of just spending it on lavish lifestyles, they began investing in something far more dangerous: technology. These cartels had learned to adapt quickly to changes in their environment. They knew that law enforcement officers and military forces were constantly looking for better ways to catch them and block the flow of illegal drugs. So instead of staying one step behind, the cartels pushed forward, using technology to gain the upper hand. This growing battle between both sides turned into a high-tech race. While the cartels worked on making their drug operations faster and more hidden, the police and the military were also busy improving their tools for tracking and surveillance. Both sides were trying to outsmart each other. Cartels didn't just rely on old methods anymore. They were thinking like engineers and tech experts, looking for clever ways to escape detection and stay in control. One of the most surprising results of this ongoing battle was the creation of narco submarines. These are real, homemade submarines, built for one main purpose: smuggling drugs underwater without being seen. Over the past 20 years, Colombian drug cartels had quietly shifted from using fast boats and small aircraft to building their own submersibles. They were built in hidden workshops deep in the jungle or tucked away in remote areas. Some of these subs could travel for hundreds of miles, staying low and quiet under the surface of the water. Some were fully submersible, while others floated just below the waves, making them hard to spot by radar or patrol planes. This change was driven by the increasing danger of losing entire drug shipments to authorities. Planes were being tracked, boats were being stopped, and cartels were losing millions. So they responded by building something the authorities weren't prepared for, but submarines. Since 2013, this type of transport has helped increase drug trafficking by 10%. It is mostly used to move cocaine from Colombia, where 93% of the cocaine consumed in the U.S. is made, to Central America and Mexico. From there, the drugs are sent into the United States. The DEA says this route now handles about 93% of the cocaine smuggled from South America to North America. In comparison, only 7% moves through the Caribbean islands, mainly the Dominican Republic, before reaching Florida or other areas along the eastern coast of the U.S. A narco-submarine, often called a narco-sub, is a special type of homemade boat that drug traffickers build to secretly move illegal drugs, especially cocaine. These submarines are self-powered and can travel long distances underwater or just below the surface, which makes them very hard to spot. Over time, the design and technology behind these vessels have become more advanced. Builders have improved the shape, speed, and quietness of the subs, making it even harder for law enforcement to find and stop them. Even though these submarines are expensive to build, drug traffickers still think they're worth the money. The reason is simple. What they gain in return is far greater than what they spend. A single narco sub can carry tons of drugs worth millions, and if just one trip succeeds, it pays for the cost of building the submarine many times over. From a business point of view, it's a smart investment for the cartels. On the other side, military forces and police in different countries have been working more closely together to stop the drug trade. They've shared information, upgraded their equipment, and teamed up for missions. Still, narco subs continue to be a big problem. Their secretive design helps the drugs reach their destinations while avoiding radar and patrol boats. Although some of these subs have been caught over the years, many more likely make it through undetected. When the authorities do manage to seize one of these submarines, it gives them a rare chance to learn how they work. By studying the parts, engines, and materials used, experts can figure out how the subs are built and what routes they might be taking. This helps improve future tracking and interception efforts. Much of this activity is linked to the cocaine trade that started in the Andean region of South America, countries like Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. From there, huge amounts of cocaine are smuggled into the United States every year. According to a United Nations estimate from 2008, the U.S. retail market for cocaine was worth around $88 billion a year. That's an enormous amount of money, and over the last 35 years, it has added up to trillions of dollars in sales. Drug cartels are willing to take big risks and spend a lot on technology because the rewards are so high. Narco submarines are just one part of a larger network of drug smuggling methods. Traffickers also use high-speed boats, known as go-fast boats, small airplanes, and creative hiding places, like stuffing drugs inside shipping containers, food products, or even small items like toys. Sometimes they pay people, called drug mules, to carry small amounts of drugs hidden on or inside their bodies. As of June 2012, experts reported that around 80% of the illegal drug flow from the Andean region, mainly Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, into countries like Honduras, Mexico, and other halfway points before entering the United States happens through the sea. Out of that maritime traffic, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration believed that nearly 30% involved the use of narco submarines. These special smuggling boats have become an important tool for drug traffickers, helping them sneak drugs past patrols and coast guards. Even though the U.S. and its allies try to stop these drug shipments, the success rate is still low. In March 2014, General John F. Kelly, the head of the U.S. Southern Command at the time, spoke to the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee. He explained that due to limited funding and equipment shortages, they had to cancel more than 200 key missions and joint training exercises with other countries. These cancellations left huge gaps in their ability to fight drug trafficking at sea. He admitted that they simply didn't have enough ships, aircraft, or resources to go after all the drug boats they knew were out there. In fact, they could only act on about 26% of the suspected maritime smuggling cases, meaning nearly 3 out of every 4 drug boats went untouched. Because of these shortages, drug smugglers often operate with little fear of being caught. Narco submarines and other smuggling boats continue to move large loads of drugs across the ocean without much interference. Only a small number of them are actually intercepted. Rear Admiral Charles Michel, who served as the director of the Joint Interagency Task Force South, gave more details in June 2012. He said that the U.S. first spotted a self-propelled semi-submersible in the ocean back in 2006. These types of submarines, which move just below the water's surface and are very hard to see, became more common over the next few years. By as many as 60 of these vessels were being used each year, carrying about 330 metric tons of cocaine annually. Originally, these narco subs were used only in the Eastern Pacific, but starting in July 2011, drug cartels began sending them through the Western Caribbean too. JIATF South helped to stop 5 of these submarines in that region, and each one was found carrying over 6.5 metric tons of cocaine. Altogether, 214 narco submarine events have been documented, but only 45 were successfully stopped. That's because these subs are built to be low and quiet, making them extremely difficult to detect. No one is exactly sure how many of these submarines exist, but it's likely that dozens are built every year. Powerful criminal groups in Colombia, such as the FARC, the Rastreros, and the Urabeños, are known to be behind most of their production. Whether more or fewer are made depends on how the subs are used. U.S. officials believe that most are used once and then sunk to hide the evidence. However, Colombian officials think many are reused. This disagreement affects how many new submarines drug cartels need to build every year to replace the ones lost through capture, sinking, or scuttling after delivery. Over the last 20 years, narco submarines have become much more advanced. They have improved in both design and capability. At first, many were only semi-submersible, meaning they traveled just below the surface. But now some are fully submersible and can dive deeper, making them harder to detect. If Colombian drug cartels succeed in their plans to send these fully submersible narco subs all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to West Africa and Europe, it would mark a major shift in smuggling. These long journeys would make each trip so valuable that traffickers likely wouldn't sink the vessels afterward, as they sometimes do with shorter trips. This shift in the drug trade shows how important and profitable the cocaine market is, especially in the United States. Every year, tons of cocaine are smuggled from South America into the U.S., and much of it goes undetected during the early parts of the journey. With so many of these submarines slipping past patrols, it's clear that authorities are struggling to keep up with the traffickers' clever methods and advanced tools. This growing challenge has pushed law enforcement to adapt quickly, but the numbers suggest that traffickers are staying one step ahead, expanding their reach and refining their tactics. In 2024, authorities intercepted a near-record number of narco submarines trying to cross both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. These drug-filled vessels were not just spotted in the usual routes, they started showing up in new areas too. This shows that drug traffickers are relying more and more on these quiet, hard-to-detect submarines to move cocaine to global markets. For many years, narco subs were mainly used to carry cocaine from Colombia's Pacific coast to countries like Mexico or those in Central America. But the latest seizure reports reveal something more troubling. These submarines are not only increasing in number, but also becoming more advanced. They're now built to travel longer distances, avoid detection with better stealth designs, and even reach parts of the world that were not previously targeted by drug cartels. These recent developments show just how serious the situation has become. Cartels are no longer using narco subs just for short coastal trips. Some are now attempting long ocean crossings, such as to Europe or West Africa, which could open up even more dangerous trafficking networks. This shift signals a bold and aggressive strategy by criminal groups who are constantly looking for ways to stay ahead of law enforcement. Of the 240 narco submarines analyzed by Insight Crime, more than half were built in hidden, handmade shipyards along Colombia's Pacific coast. These areas, especially the country's western departments, are covered in thick jungle and crisscrossed by rivers that lead to the ocean. Deep inside narrow estuaries, shielded by tall trees and dense plants, many secret boat-building sites are tucked away. These locations are not only hard to find but are also close to key waterways, making them perfect for launching drug submarines into the sea. Each hidden shipyard acts like a mini criminal workshop. These sites pull together a wide range of people with different skills and roles. There are drug producers, boat builders, mechanical experts, experienced sailors, armed guards, and even engineers. All of them work under the leadership of major criminal groups that have the money and patience to support such complex operations. These groups are willing to wait several months for a profit once the drugs hidden inside the narcosubs arrive at their destinations overseas. Between 2019 and 2023, authorities discovered many of these secret yards. Data from SimCon shows that 26 were found in Nariño, 10 in Cauca, and 3 each in Valle del Cauca and Choco. It's no surprise that these places are also major centers for growing coca, the plant used to make cocaine. Having shipyards close to coca fields means the drugs don't have to travel far by land, reducing the risk of being caught before they reach the water. While most narco-sub shipyards are based along Colombia's Pacific coast, law enforcement has found similar sites in Brazil, Venezuela, Guyana, and Suriname. This shows that traffickers are expanding their operations and using these boats to reach Europe more directly, where cocaine sells for even higher prices. Some of the most advanced narco-subs have been built in surprising places, far from the coast. These inland locations have better access to materials, tools, and skilled workers. A striking example occurred in 2000 when Colombian police discovered a huge, partially completed submarine in a warehouse in a suburb of Bogotá. It was 100 feet long and, according to estimates at the time, could carry up to 15 tons of cocaine. This inland construction proved that cartels weren't limited by location. They were willing to adapt, build smarter, and find ways to hide their work wherever it was safest. In a striking case from 2000, Colombian police uncovered a massive half-built narco-submarine in a warehouse in Bogotá. Authorities believed the plan was to finish constructing the sub in Bogotá, then disassemble it, transport it piece by piece to the Pacific coast, and reassemble it for its journey at sea. What raised further concern was the discovery of Russian-language documents at the scene. This led investigators to suspect possible involvement by Russian criminal organizations in the submarine's design or construction, suggesting a deeper and more international web of cooperation in drug trafficking operations. Almost 2 decades later, the sophistication and reach of narco-submarine trafficking took another leap. In 2019, European authorities intercepted a 22-meter, low-profile vessel believed to have been built near Manaus, Brazil. From there, the vessel traveled more than 1,200 kilometers down the Amazon River before crossing the Atlantic Ocean to reach Galicia, on Spain's northern coast. This marked the first known case of a narco-sub successfully crossing the Atlantic, a significant development in the growing use of submersibles in transoceanic drug trafficking. By 2024, interceptions of these stealth vessels surged to near-record levels. Authorities captured 30 narco-subs that year, according to data reviewed by Insight Crime. Most of these vessels were caught along established Pacific drug routes between South America and Central America. A staggering 81% of the narco-subs in the Insight Crime database were seized in Pacific waters or just off the coast, confirming the region as a major trafficking corridor. Colombian law enforcement continues to focus on stopping these vessels while they are still in rivers or estuaries, where they are easier to locate. However, their success is limited. Only about 1 in 4 seizures happens in these inland waters. Once the subs reach the open ocean, they become incredibly difficult to track, and U.S. security officials estimate that interdiction rates can drop as low as 5%, depending on weather, surveillance coverage, and sea conditions. LPVs, due to their design and intent to evade detection, generally follow routes that exploit gaps in traditional surveillance coverage. A spokesperson from the Joint Interagency Task Force South explained to Insight Crime, "These routes are carefully planned, often taking advantage of unmonitored stretches of ocean where detection is unlikely." Narco subs are often supported by a fleet of smaller boats and fishing vessels that serve as mobile refueling stations along the way. These support boats are positioned at key points along the route. Even though some LPVs can carry up to 1,350 gallons of fuel, rough seas, unexpected detours, or extended evasion from patrols may require earlier refueling stops to complete the journey. Back in 2014, U.S. Southern Command General John Kelly gave grim testimony before Congress. He explained that due to limited resources and the overwhelming number of trafficking attempts, the United States was only able to pursue 26% of all suspected maritime drug trafficking vessels. This shows just how hard it is to stop drug trafficking by sea, especially with the rise of narco submarines. These stealthy subs are hard to find and carry large amounts of drugs. If the U.S. wants to stay ahead in the fight against drug cartels, it must improve its efforts to detect and stop these underwater threats. Thanks for watching. Before you go, click the link on your screen to check out another video. See you there.